just a heads up before we start the video, this will be covering portions of the entire run of the comics of The Boys, as well as seasons 1 and 4 of the series, so spoilers if you haven't seen those already. Also, both the comics and the show are very graphic, inappropriate, and very mature. Even if I have to censor a lot of it to upload to YouTube, there will be a lot of carnage, so if you're a minor or in any way squeamish, I'd opt out of this one. So, Homelander, the main antagonist of The Boys, Thought's #1 suit, and an unstoppable threat who can basically do whatever he wants. Even if many others came before and after, he's the idealized example of the evil Superman trope, where he may seem trustworthy and champions justice, but in reality, he's a homicidal and sociopathic maniac looking out for his own interests rather than others. And in the world he's in, he's a god amongst men, who frequently is shown to be beyond other heavy hitters in his world. But when you branch out and look at basically any other medium, you'd be surprised on how weak he is. Relatively speaking, when you compare him to other strong characters, other superheroes, or hell, even other evil Superman figures, Homelander gets bodied hard. It kinda puts it in perspective on things, really, where many stuff could one-shot fellow humans are small potatoes against stuff like chucking buildings, leveling towns, or destroying planets. But amongst all the jokes and lowballs of his character, it really made me wonder as the next season of The Boys is just around the corner. How strong is Homelander exactly? We know what Homelander's powers are, and both in the comics and the show have several feats of strength and speed, such as tossing fire jets, ripping people in half, or flying at Mach speeds, but a lot of his showings were done very casually and don't give you the full scope on his true potential. That, and I have another video in the making on the subject of Homelander, so I wanted to dig a little deeper into John myself. A couple things to keep in mind here. For starters, there are a lot of differences between the comics and the show, and show off and state many different feats and abilities, so we'll cover them both when appropriate, as well as add additional material such as the Boys Diabolical and Gen V when applicable. However, I won't be discussing non-canon crossovers such as Mortal Kombat 1 or DCKO. Also keep in mind that Homelander in both continuities is regularly stated to be the greatest and most powerful suit of them all, so with a few folks barely coming close to him in power in both adaptations, giving Homelander the DNA of other superheroes such as Soldier Boy in the Amazon series and Stormfront in the comics, so we can scale him to the feats of other suits when needed. So, let's actually get into what Homelander can do. We'll start with the easiest things to lock in and work down from there, starting with his senses, or accurately, hearing, sense of smell, and vision. For his hearing, it's been officially stated he can hear up to 200,000 hertz and can hear everything from someone's heartbeat to conversations around the room. This pairs well with his sense of smell that can track people like a bloodhound and figure out subtle details such as adrenaline increasing. With these two abilities, Homelander can easily deduce when someone is lying, and Homelander's vision has X-ray vision to see through almost everything. But he does say that he can't see through zinc. Exclusively in the comics, during their take on the botched Flight 27 mission, Homelander snapped and screamed so loud he ruptured the eardrums of every passenger on board. It's been officially stated that his vocal cords are 20 times more powerful than most humans, so that puts him at the range of 150 decibels, roughly the equivalent of a rocket launch or fighter jets taking off. Now, let's talk about his speed, primarily in the air. Already in the beginning of the show, we see him flying at Mach speeds during his search for translucent, and in the comics, he's capable of catching up with A-Train, who can run up to Mach 3, but his most impressive feat was when he managed to escape a C4 explosion with Billy Butcher while it was detonating. The type of explosions and how far he needed to go, Homelander would need to be moving at Mach 23 just to get it done. I feel like I should also mention that in the comics, Billy Butcher did say that some suits can even outrun tachyon beams, which are particles that move even faster than light. However, I feel like that's a bit of an outlier, and nothing in both the comics or show really confirm any speeds of that nature. Up next, let's talk about his go-to ability, his laser vision, an incredibly versatile move in practice that can change in power depending on what Homelander wants. He can make it soft enough to warm a bottle of milk without boiling the liquid or destroying the bottle, dense enough to knock Billy Butcher back rather than cutting straight through, or slicing people in half like a hot knife through butter. In the first episode of the series, it can even cut through airplanes airplanes, and even melt a gun rather than slicing it. Guns are comprised of multiple different types of metals, but the one with the highest melting point is steel, with a melting point of 22,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's likely even hotter considering Temp B, Butcher, and Homelander were able to basically do a laser duel at Herogasm, and Temp B Butcher's lasers were able of weakening Soldier Boy's shield, which has been speculated to be made out of tungsten, with a melting point of 6,300 degrees. While all that is impressive, Homelander's array of powers is also aided by his intense durability. One important thing to note about Supes is that, as stated by Dean in Gen V, through training and surviving deadly blows, Supes get even stronger and more durable. So Homelander as a child was made even more powerful by training with older Supes and being placed in a furnace that could charm normal people in seconds. All that makes him one of the most durable things on the planet by default, capable of surviving cave-ins, gunfire, and other Supes without a scratch. During one of his first missions, as seen in The Boys Diabolical, he withstood a chemical plant tanker exploding in front of him, added on by his improved healing factor, allowing him to take what little can hurt him like a pencil through the ear and show no signs of injury the next day. However, the aspect of how much he can take isn't so clear. In the show, Malin Stillwell stated no weapon on Earth could kill him, and the end of the comics said Supes like him could swim through the sun. But context matters with those statements. In a post-Cold War world, it's unlikely the country, let alone a private company, would have anything close to the SAR bomb, or even the US's own B-41, although Stillwell in the comics did say a hydrogen bomb would kill him, and Bot had to keep said hydrogen bomb strapped onto him as a child, which gives some leeway to Jason's statement, more than Madeline's in my opinion. So I feel like our safest bet is go with just above the average of the modern nuclear arsenal in America at over a megaton of TNT. That would not only give him great durability, but also allow him to withstand the scorching heat of such a bomb, and likely what meant by Supes being able to swim through the sun. And last but not least, let's cover the hardest subject to really pin down, as most things in this world were easily tossed around like ragdolls, so it's really hard to really judge him what he can do actually trying to use his full strength. But thankfully, this is where comparing him to other heroes and their greatest feats come in, such as A-Train in the show for instance. Under the effects of Compound B, he was able to pull a train plus 3 passenger cars with a combined weight of 181 tons, and Stormfront in the show has been stated to fling around anything lighter than a 747, a feat that could be close to either 150 tons to possibly 440 tons. Homelander claims he could lift the 206 Flight 37 plane if he had a solid surface to stand on, and in the comics, Mother's Milk also claims that Homelander is scheduled to hold up bridges for demolition, which honestly could mean anything, as well as bench press a dozen Mack trucks. That's a bold claim for sure, but bear in mind that it took the combined strength of Soldier Boy and 2 other Supes on 2 separate occasions to keep him pinned down, and through sheer coincidence, if we look at A-Train's greatest speed and the possible low in his storefronts, the math holds up, so I'd say that claim holds weight. If we want to take this power scaling literally, Homelander's max strength could range between 480 tons to possibly 543 tons, possibly higher if we assume Soldier Boy is far stronger than the average Supe. I know A-Train has never fought Soldier Boy or Stormfront to prove whether he's stronger or weaker than them, but this is the best showcase of one's strength in the series and lines up with the existing information pretty well. So, with all that covered, here's what his stats are looking like. You can take a moment to read this. Overall, I'd say this is pretty good, more than what I was initially expecting. But there are a few other things that can't really be measured too, such as his ability to breathe in space and his shockingly good stealth skills. However, you need to bear in mind that with all that, there are several key flaws that really mess with Homelander in the context of a fight. For starters, he can't use his full strength when he's airborne, though I'd argue it's less of a flaw, and that's just more how physics work. Also, he's been shown to briefly be blinded by basic stage lights, not to mention, unlike other Supes like Soldier Boy or Stormfront, he doesn't possess a longer lifespan and is likely out of his prime. However, his major flaws aren't necessarily physical ones, or being weak in one stat, nor is it a specific tool that's super effective against him like Kryptonite. Rather, it's more psychological. Simply put, He's a narcissistic loony that can't handle loss well. He's very quick to anger, and while he may try to manipulate and talk at first, the moment he sees anyone is weaker or no one's watching, or they just happen to annoy him a tiny bit, he's quick to go for the kill immediately. Doesn't pair well with the fact that he's pretty clumsy sometimes, often killing others by pure accident or causing severe collateral damage, such as that Flight 37 when he destroyed the controls, or when he accidentally crushed the guy's skull without even realizing it. That leads into another major flaw of his actually, his cowardice. Though he may be the strongest soup and everyone knows it, he hates losing. Even if he doesn't always follow Vought's script, his traumatic past and want for his own life make him despise being seen as weak. As such, he'll do whatever it takes to win, and if he can't win, he'll just bail. However, that is not his biggest flaw. The biggest flaw that Homelander, relatively speaking, has is that he has very little experience in a true fight. Sure, he might have experience in catching bad guys or being beat up as a child, but from what's shown, he's never truly fought someone at his own level or received any kind of formal training. This can be seen with several characters with actual fighting experience holding their own against Homelander despite the massive gap in power, even scratching him and damaging him like for real. But, however, there is one more thing, a silver lining on how he manages to be so feared despite the weaknesses, and overall why he is the way he is. His ability to manipulate. Everyone knows he's the strongest, and even without that, he always knows how to get under anyone's skin, even outsmarting other intelligent characters in the series. It's why he sees himself as better. After all, Homelander knows he is capable of wiping out almost any and everyone with a single punch or laser, and in cases where he needs certain characters alive, everyone is always afraid of what Homelander could do, as one wrong move could end their life. I hope you like this deep dive into the character. Now, normally this isn't what I normally cover on YouTube, but it was still a lot of fun to make, looking into the results for myself and being genuinely surprised, and it's interesting looking at how a god compares itself to the peons he can crush. Now, as a reminder, this was all filmed and recorded before Season 5 came out, so I'm pretty sure there's a lot more stuff that'll come later, and I'll be sure to update it in my upcoming video about him.